Every trace of her was smashed, chiseled off temple walls and ground into dust, not by foreign invaders, not by conquering armies, by her own family. By the end of this video, you will know the name of the one pharaoh that ancient Egypt tried to permanently delete from existence, why they did it, and how the evidence survived thousands of years of deliberate destruction. This is not a story about war or plague or famine. This is a story about something far more dangerous to the ancient world, a woman who seized absolute power in a civilization built entirely around the divine authority of men. And when she died, the men who followed her understood something terrifying. If the people remembered what she had done, if they remembered that a woman had ruled as king and led Egypt into one of its most prosperous eras in history, then every assumption about who deserved power would collapse. The truth was buried for a reason, and that reason had nothing to do with her failure. It had everything to do with her success. Her name was Hatshepsut, and for centuries this was hidden from the world. To understand why Egypt erased her, you need to understand how Egypt worked. The pharaoh was not merely a political leader. The pharaoh was a living god, the physical embodiment of Horus on earth, the sole bridge between the mortal world and the divine realm. Every harvest, every flood of the Nile, every military victory was credited to the pharaoh's divine connection. And that divine connection followed a strict, unbroken line from father to son, male to male, god to god. The entire civilization, its religion, its economy, its military structure, rested on this single idea. The pharaoh is a man because the gods demand it. Now imagine what happens when someone breaks that chain. Hatshepsut was the daughter of Thutmose I, one of Egypt's great warrior pharaohs, born into royalty, married to her half-brother Thutmose II, as was custom among Egyptian royals. And when Thutmose II died young, his heir was an infant. Thutmose III, his son by a secondary wife, was far too young to rule, so Hatshepsut stepped in as regent. This was not unusual. Queens had served as temporary regents before, holding power in trust until the boy king came of age. But Hatshepsut did something no woman before her had ever done. She did not step aside. She did not wait. Within 7 years of her regency, she declared herself pharaoh, not queen regent, not temporary guardian. Pharaoh, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, the living embodiment of the god Horus. Here's the thing. What most people don't realize is how carefully she engineered this transformation. Hatshepsut understood that raw power alone would not sustain her. She needed legitimacy. She needed the gods themselves to endorse her rule. So she commissioned an elaborate origin story, carved into the walls of her magnificent temple at Deir el-Bahari. The story claimed that the god Amun-Ra himself had visited her mother, Queen Ahmose, disguised as Thutmose I, and that Hatshepsut was therefore not merely a king's daughter, but the biological child of the supreme god, divinely conceived, chosen before birth, destined to rule. And then she went further. She began appearing in statues and carvings wearing the traditional false beard of the pharaoh. She adopted the full royal titulary, every sacred name and title that only kings had ever held. She referred to herself with masculine pronouns in official inscriptions. She didn't do this because she wanted to be a man. She did it because the language of power in Egypt had no feminine form. There was no word for a female pharaoh because the concept was never supposed to exist. And here is what makes her story truly extraordinary. She didn't just seize power and cling to it. She wielded it brilliantly. Under her reign, Egypt entered a golden age. She launched one of the most ambitious trade expeditions in Egyptian history, sending a fleet of 5 ships to the distant land of Punt, a semi-mythical region likely located along the coast of modern-day Somalia or Eritrea. The expedition returned laden with gold, ebony, myrrh trees, ivory, and exotic animals. The wealth that poured into Egypt was staggering. She commissioned architectural projects that rivaled anything her male predecessors had built. Her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari remains one of the most stunning structures in all of Egypt. A sweeping colonnade of terraces carved directly into the limestone cliffs of the Theban mountains. She erected 2 enormous obelisks at the Temple of Karnak, among the tallest ever raised, tipped in electrum so they caught the sun and blazed like pillars of fire. She expanded trade networks, stabilized borders, and kept Egypt at peace during a period when surrounding nations were locked in conflict. For roughly 20 years, Hatshepsut ruled Egypt as its undisputed king. 20 years of prosperity, stability, and monumental achievement. And then she vanished. Around 1458 BCE, Hatshepsut disappeared from the historical record. She likely died of natural causes. Recent analysis of a tooth found in a canopic jar associated with her suggests she may have suffered from bone cancer or a severe abscess infection. Thutmose III, now a grown man and a formidable military commander, finally assumed sole control of the throne, and then the erasure began. But not immediately. This is a detail that most accounts skip right over. The destruction of Hatshepsut's legacy did not begin right after her death. It started roughly 20 years later, near the end of Thutmose III's own reign. Workers were dispatched to temples across Egypt with a specific mission: find every image of Hatshepsut and destroy it. Her cartouches were chiseled off walls. Her statues were torn down, smashed, and buried in pits near her own temple. Her name was scraped from king lists. At Karnak, Thutmose III ordered a massive stone wall built around her obelisks, not to destroy them, as they were sacred to Amun, but to hide them from view, so no one passing through the temple would see her name or remember what she had done. For centuries, this campaign of destruction was interpreted as personal revenge. Historians assumed Thutmose III hated his stepmother for stealing his throne, that he waited decades and finally unleashed his fury. But modern scholarship tells a very different story, and it is far more unsettling than simple hatred. The timing is the key. If Thutmose III wanted revenge, why wait 20 years? Think about that for a second. By the time the erasure began, he was an old man, one of the most accomplished military pharaohs in Egyptian history, a conqueror who had led 17 campaigns into the Levant and expanded Egypt's empire to its greatest extent. He had nothing to prove. He had no reason to feel threatened by a dead woman, unless the threat was not personal, unless it was dynastic. Thutmose III's concern was not his own legacy. It was the legacy of his son, Amenhotep II, and the future of his bloodline. Hatshepsut had proven that a woman could rule as pharaoh. She had proven it so convincingly that for 20 years no one had challenged her. If her precedent survived, if future generations remembered that a woman had once legitimately held the throne, then any ambitious queen or princess could point to Hatshepsut and claim the same right. The carefully maintained fiction that only men could embody Horus, that only sons could inherit the divine throne, would be permanently shattered. The erasure was not about anger. It was about power. It was about ensuring that what Hatshepsut had done could never be done again. And it almost worked. For over 3,000 years, Hatshepsut was virtually unknown. She was absent from the king lists at Abydos and Karnak. Classical historians who visited Egypt never mentioned her. When early Egyptologists began deciphering hieroglyphics in the 19th century, they found references to a mysterious king whose images had been systematically destroyed, but they could not piece together who it was. Some scholars, finding feminine grammatical forms mixed with masculine titles, assumed the inscriptions were errors or referred to an unknown male pharaoh with an unusual name. It was not until 1822, when Jean-François Champollion deciphered the Rosetta Stone and the full scope of hieroglyphic reading became possible, that fragments of Hatshepsut's story began to surface. And it took another century of archaeology, including Howard Carter's early excavations at Deir el-Bahari, before he found Tutankhamun's tomb, and the painstaking work of scholars who reassembled smashed statues from burial pits, before the full picture emerged. In 2007, Egyptian archaeologist Zahi Hawass announced that a mummy discovered in 1903 in tomb KV60 in the Valley of the Kings had been positively identified as Hatshepsut through CT scanning and DNA analysis. The woman who had been erased from history finally had a face again. Think about what this means. One of the most successful rulers in Egyptian history, a pharaoh who presided over 2 decades of peace and prosperity, who built monuments that still stand today, who expanded trade to the edges of the known world, was nearly lost forever. Not because she failed, because she succeeded in a way that the power structure could not tolerate. The erasure of Hatshepsut is not just an ancient story. It is a pattern that repeats across every civilization and every century. Those who challenge the foundations of power are not always defeated in battle. Sometimes they are defeated in memory. Their names are removed from records. Their achievements are attributed to others. Their stories are simply never told. If this changed how you see history, the like button is right there. It helps more people find stories like this, stories that were supposed to stay buried. Hatshepsut built her temple to last for eternity. The men who came after her tried to make sure no one would ever know why. 3,000 years later, her columns still stand in the Egyptian sun. And now, finally, so does her name. If you want to keep uncovering the secrets that history tried to hide, subscribe to Historical Secrets. The past has more to tell us than we were ever meant to hear.